Well, welcome to this overview of the QI macros for Excel. A very simple, easy to use program for Lean, Six Sigma, and statistical process control. The idea behind the QI macros was I just needed some tools when I originally got started to help me do this way back in the 1990s. And Excel was becoming of age, and so was Windows. So I ended up building this whole software to support me, and then customers liked it. So now you can get control charts, Pareto Charts, histograms, fishbones, lots of different kinds of forms, diagrams like flowcharts, value stream maps, and so on, right in Microsoft Excel, and very affordably as well. The QI macros use a ribbon or a pull-down menu to get to the charts, the templates, and the statistics. And it looks like a ribbon in Excel 2007 to 2013, and in Excel 97 to 2003, and the Macintosh, it's a pull-down menu. There's over 40 different charts on the menus, so there's lots of macros and hundreds of fill-in-the-blank templates to do almost everything you can imagine. And it all has a very simple interface. It works the way Excel works. It's not a fill-in some form kind of thing. So all you have to do is select data with your mouse, click on a button, and you get a chart. If we want to get a chart like a histogram, all we need is some data. So here's some data. Just select the data with your mouse. Here you see we have a spec limits, upper and lower spec limit. Click on the QI macros, choose histograms, and then histogram with CP and CPK. We're going to put in the upper spec limit, which was 346. Lower spec limit was 200. The QI macros will prompt you for titles, so you can always change those. I recommend titling a chart. And then it'll draw the chart and give you your capability ratios and so on. And that's how it works. The QI macros will do all the math and draw the graph for you. Now the macros really have four key parts. There's charts and wizards. And these are macros to help you quickly create charts right in Microsoft Excel. We have a bunch of fill-in-the-blank templates for all of the charts and other tools out there. And literally you can just drop data into these templates and your chart grows automatically. There are statistical tools, so if you need to do hypothesis testing, ANOVAs, t-tests, and all of that stuff, right in Microsoft Excel. And then we have data transformation tools like pivot tables and so on. So we're going to explore each of these four segments. There's three main kinds of charts out there. There's line charts, which in our case are going to be control charts. And control charts are essential to being able to monitor a process once you've improved it. Without the control chart, it will be impossible. And a lot of companies don't give the people who are actually going to sustain the change a copy of the software. And so some poor black belt has to do all the charting, and they end up not improving anymore. So they lose a lot of productive power of your black belts and green belts because they don't have a tool to give the people who are going to monitor and maintain this. The control phase of DMAIC is essential to really making Six Sigma pay off. And then we have bar charts, and so we're going to use Pareto Charts and histograms as our two key tools. And then there's also scatter diagrams as well. Now, if you've ever tried to figure out what control chart to choose, you know it's not easy. There's these huge decision trees, and basically other software asks you to think this through in your head, so you have to have a little software program in your head to decide what kind of chart you want to choose. But the QI macros, because we ask you to select the data first, we can help you choose the right chart. So all you have to do is, again, select some data, click on the control chart wizard, and you're going to get a control chart. So here's an example. Here's falls per 1,000 patient days. So there's lots of things we can chart with a control chart, not just manufacturing stuff. It works in service industries as well. So just select the data with your mouse, go up to the QI macros menu, click on the control chart wizard. The control chart wizard will go out and do all the math, prompt you for titles. If there's anything interesting, it'll steal it for your titles, and create your control charts. So here's the moving range chart at the bottom and the individuals chart at the top. And you can see that all of the out of control points here are actually shown in red with little diamonds. So we were out of control here, and then there was a downward trend. Now we can actually take this and show process changes on here as well. So for example, we could click on this single point And when you click on a chart, it brings up another QI macros menu, the chart menu. So here we can say show process change. And the QI macros will recalculate your limits to show that we, yes, indeed, did improve falls per 1,000 patient days. And then we could come back and redo stability. And you can see it was a stable process before, and then we have this downward trend where we were improving. And we can do this in another way as well. You can actually put a blank row in between your data, and that will give you some stair-step limits. So if we click on this and then choose Chart Wizard, the QI macros will draw the chart and simply show the before and after here with a blank row in between. All right, so that's how simple it is to actually go ahead and create control charts in the QI macros in Excel. Now there's also over 100 fill-in-the-blank templates, and the fill-in-the-blank templates, you simply open one up and then you can just type your data right into it. So if you click on control chart templates, choose something like the XMR 5-pack, once you start typing in data, the chart will grow automatically. And this makes it very easy to maintain a monthly or weekly or whatever kind of chart of your data. And on each one of these there are multiple little templates down here for rolling and scrolling and median charts and fixed charts. So any kind of format that you want to use, you'll find in the templates. There's also Fishbones and value stream maps. So if you click on Fishbone, you'll get our automated Fishbone, and you just put in first your Y's and then your first Y and then your second, third, and fourth Y. And here's a sample, and if you click on Create Fishbone, it'll go out and actually create a Fishbone diagram of all of your inputs right here in Microsoft Excel. And then we also have fill-in-the-blank templates for things like value stream maps. And here you can see we have all the various templates and symbols. And then we get some samples that you can start to play with and use to build your value stream map right in Microsoft Excel. Excel has like a little mini Visio built in, and so it's very easy to create these kind of tools in Excel and use the QI macros templates as a starting point. So it's just a copy-paste sort of thing. You just copy symbols, paste them in, connect them up with Excel's connection tools. There's also lots of other templates like design of experiments, gauge R&R, quality function deployment, that you can find right inside of QI macros. There's also control chart dashboards, and this makes it really easy to take care of charting all of your data every month. So if we go back to the QI macros, click on control chart templates and go down to XMR dashboard. There's an instruction sheet, there's a data sheet, and so we can put our data in here with our chart titles and spec limits. And then there's a variety of different ways we can display this data. And I'll just show the XMR average. So there's some tools you can fast forward through these from chart to chart. Or once you're ready, you can actually click on Create Dashboard. And this will go create separate sheets and put together one dashboard with the individual's charts for any data you've put in here. We have companies that, hospital groups that track 600 odd metrics using this tool. Then the next month you just come back in and type in your data, hit refresh charts, and the QI macros will update and add the new point into your charts. There's also a statistics wizard, and the statistics wizard, again, a lot of people forget, well, what do I do with my data and what are all the rules and so on. So let's say that you have some data that looks like this, and these are calcium in solution for different kinds of blood thinners in healthcare. And we want to check that out. In the QI macros, if you go over here, we have all the statistical tools, and again, these have all been rewritten so they work properly. So if you knew, you could actually go do an ANOVA single factor, but if you weren't sure, the stat wizard will go ahead and figure out what to do with that. So the stat wizard will go ahead and check out your data, first of all to make sure that it's normally distributed, then it'll run a Levine's test and an ANOVA test. It'll come back and tell you the data is normal, the variances are the same, and the means are different. And the QI macros also tell you right on the analysis that, guess what, we can reject the null hypothesis because our p-value is less than our alpha value up here. The QI macros also add in post hoc tests, so you can tell which of these things are actually the most different. So AAS is significantly different from EDTA. And then we give you a box and whisker plot of the data, so you can kind of see here that the means really are different. And that's the QI macros statistics wizard. Now we can also transform data using pivot tables, and every million-dollar project I've ever worked on had these things where if you did a pivot table, it helped us find the invisible low-hanging fruit. Lots of people talk about low-hanging fruit, but most people don't know how to find it. So in the QI macros, we have some test data, but I see lots of data that looks like this, line by line, different kinds of defect data, lost time analysis, time to thrombolytics, denied claims, or things like this where we have words. And the words are kind of difficult to parse out. Why are we getting all these kinds of calls? So service reps collect this data, but we need a way to analyze that. So first let's look at this particular one. So in essence, you can select the data with your mouse, and you can select up to 4 different headings. Click on the QI macros and find our pivot table wizard. When you click on the pivot table wizard, it'll take that and say, what's the best way to display this data? And here you can see we have by date. We have our packaging defects per day. So we could go ahead and turn that into a control chart that shows that we have a standard kind of expected level of defects at about 8.5. And we could come back in and say, well, maybe we should look at it by line. And with the QI macros, you can select data horizontally or vertically. So we could select Pareto chart. So here we can see that line 3 is our big hitter. And so we could go back and actually explore line 3. If you click on any cell in a pivot table, it'll bring up all the data behind it. In this case, we have our data for line 3. And you can also just select a single column of text in the Pareto chart macro. We'll go count those up for you. And so here we can see packaging defects in line 3, folded flaps are the biggest hitter. And then we could go ahead and add in a fishbone diagram. And the big bar of the Pareto chart is the head of the fish. So again, it's very easy to analyze and do data mining using the QI macros pivot table wizard. Now the other thing we can do is go examine data that looks like words. If we select all of this data, go to QI macros, choose word count. Word count will parse this into 1- and 2-word phrases and turn that into a pivot table of those sets of words. So here you can kind of see top word is dupe. DOS stands for date of service. Reject for dupe. Dupe date of service day reject. Multiple visits. Date of service multiple visits on the same day. And so this starts to tell us that we're getting all these calls about claims being rejected for duplicate data service. So I think you understand you don't have to be a statistician or a geek to use the QI macros. You just select data and create your charts. Frontline workers, anybody can use this, all right? And one of the questions that people fail to ask is, why does it feel like I need to be a statistician? Why does it take 5 days to learn a complex statistical package? Why shouldn't it just take a matter of a few minutes or an hour? And why can't the software help me choose the right chart? Why do I have to go through these decision trees to figure out what chart to choose first? And why do I have to import data into the software if it's already in Excel? So with the QI macros, you jump over that. And then there's a lot of people who try to do this manually, or they have homegrown Excel files that might be inaccurate or whatever, or they have complex software that's too hard to use. I spoke to one company that had spent a small fortune on 150 licenses, one of the big competitors of mine, and went around and was asking the greenbelts if they were using the tool, and they said, no, it's too hard to use. So it doesn't matter how much you spend if people won't use it. So the QI macros help you reduce the cost of doing all of this documentation. And you can do it immediately. You don't have to wait on it. And how many improvement projects aren't being done because you're too busy charting? I talked to one black belt, and he said he was the chart monkey for his company, and he no longer did improvement projects. And these costs have nothing to do with your competence, intelligence, attention to detail, skills, statistical knowledge, computer savvy, but everything to do with your tools. One company estimated it cut their documentation costs by 75%. The hospital that uses this to track over 600 metrics, they took their processing time to update all those things from about 6 days down to about 3 hours. And so that's a significant reduction. And so everybody finds that it's really easy to do this in the QI macros. And you don't have to spend a fortune. We're the least expensive Lean Six Sigma software around. It's only $229 for single copies, discounts for 2 or more, and you can train anyone within minutes. We have complete online training on every one of the tools in the QI macros. And you'll find that on the QI macros under our training pull-down menu. So will you have the tools you need to make improvement teams successful? They're all in the QI macros. So start reducing delay, defects, and deviation, the 3 silent killers of productivity and profitability, and start doing it now. Get the QI macros. They're an easy-to-use toolkit for Lean and Six Sigma statistical process control. And we have free lessons online. I'm Jay Arthur. If you have questions, feel free to give us a call or send us an email, and we're happy to explain anything about the QI macros to you and to help you evaluate this for your organization.